Record. If you have received emails and event announcements, they have almost likely been from me. First and foremost, I would like to welcome everyone to the 2021 TSOPHE Virtual Conference. Let's see, so just to double check, you are seeing my welcome screen, right? Not the presenter slides. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mary. So I first started with the Texas Society for Public Health Education as secretary. During this time, I was a graduate student at Baylor University. I am originally from Royal City, Washington, a very small town in central Washington. So my move to Texas and being away from home while being a first generation student was difficult. However, the Texas Society for Public Health Education quickly became one of the extracurricular activities that I enjoyed the most. I know what you may be thinking, how the heck did I end up in Texas, all the way from Washington State? And that is exactly what I was thinking when my mom told me her entire family was in the state of Texas while we were in Washington. When my mom first came to the US, my aunt, my grandma, and my mom settled on colonias on the South Texas border. Every year, my mother would migrate to Washington for seasonal farm work. During this time, my father would also follow the seasonal farm work often found in Central California and Washington. Each year, my rural hometown in Washington hosts community days, which is an event where my parents eventually met, married, and settled down. Over the years, before my grandmother passed away, my family often took a yearly trip to visit my family in South Texas. Every single year, my aunts would ask me what I was going to be when I grew up. And I always remember telling them that I wanted to make things easier for people with diabetes. They would always respond and say that Texas was a great place for that because of the alarmingly high prevalence rates for diabetes. When it came time for me to apply to graduate programs, I had been conducting genetics and obesity research in a molecular biology lab for 2 years. At the time, I had no idea that public health existed. While I was presenting research for my project related to obesity in Florida, I came across a poster in the public health category. I remember thinking as I stared at this poster, this is exactly what I want to do. After applying to graduate programs, reviewing mentors, and interviewing, I was offered an assistantship on a project that promoted culturally relevant programming for families residing on colonias in South Texas. And when I received this offer, I really had no other choice than to move 32 hours across the country. I had always said that if I was going to move away from family, it would have to be Texas because I would still have my family close by. Being a first generation Latina of a rural background, I often have encountered, experienced, and reflected on the impact that health disparities has had on my personal life, but also my professional career. While in Texas, I have had the privilege of working alongside underserved communities in Waco, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, and the Rio Grande Valley. When I was selected as TSOPHE president during the fall of 2019, I instinctively began to think about conference planning. At the time, I had envisioned an in-person experience that allowed for meaningful connections, strategic networking, and ultimately what would be a celebration of the amazing work taking place in the state of Texas. Of course, like all of our plans, things seemed to hit a halt when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. More importantly, my heart automatically went to all of the places that I had previously been serving, knowing that these areas were going to be heavily impacted and that lives were going to be lost. Working in COVID relief seemed daunting, overwhelming, and frankly, frightening. I remember sitting on program planning meetings, wanting to get a head start on planning, but being hesitant because of the uncertainty that the pandemic caused. I would like to take this time to thank some key individuals that have helped with putting this virtual conference together over this past year. I specifically want to thank our 2021 Program Planning Committee, Amaka Akbor, who serves as our president-elect, Eva Gonzalez Villanueva, who serves as our graduate student representative, Lakeisha Brown, who serves as our secretary, Ed Jones, who serves as a board member, Jennifer Hedaya, who serves as a board member, Gilmet Pierre, who serves as a board member, Allison Shea, who is our national delegate, and Joshua Yudkin, who is also a board member. I also want to thank 2 individuals who were in charge of everything related to marketing and advertising for the TSOPHE Conference. Andre Garza, who served as a marketing and design chair and whose background and degree is in business administration with an emphasis in marketing from the University of Washington. And Eva Gonzalez Villanueva, who serves as our communications co-chair and is also a graduate student representative from the University. I also want to take this time to recognize and thank the following sponsors: Amanda Graves with the Department of Public Health at Baylor University, Tawana Wilson with Abilities Above Bounds Beyond, Azar Gaminian with First Line Houston Health Department, Mandy Hill with the Public Health Consulting Group. Finally, I want to take some time to thank all health educators, frontline workers, and public health professionals that have dedicated their time, effort, and energy to the pandemic. The work of health educators has been critical to combating misinformation during this time. I hope you know that your efforts do not go unnoticed. On behalf of the Texas Society for Public Health Education, we thank you. The COVID-19 pandemic has severely impacted all of our lives. It has taken its toll on the Latino community. In the state of Texas, there have been 67,477 lives lost to the pandemic. Please join me as we commemorate the 67,477 lives lost with a minute-long moment of silence. Let's hope this time it works. Thank you. All right. At this time, please allow me to introduce the 2021 keynote speaker for this year's Empowering Communities Through Health Education Conference. Dr. Parra Medina is a professor of Mexican American and Latino Studies at the University of Texas at Austin, where she is the inaugural director of the Latino Research Institute. Dr. Parra Medina has substantial experience in health promotion, public health epidemiology, health disparities in chronic disease, and community-based interventions among underserved and minority populations. Over the past 20 years, she has served as a principal investigator for 17 grants, funded over $19 million, and has published over 80 scientific articles, presented at many national and international conferences, and received awards for research, teaching, and service. Dr. Parra Medina was named fellow by the American Academy of Health Behavior in 2016. She serves on the editorial board of several scholarly journals, and in 2013 received the American Public Health Association Mayhew Derryberry Award for outstanding contributions to research in the behavioral sciences. Before joining the University of Texas at Austin in 2016, she was professor of epidemiology and biostatistics at the University of Texas Health Science Center, San Antonio, and an associate professor at the University of South Carolina. She received her Master of Public Health from San Diego State University and her PhD in epidemiology from the University of California, San Diego. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Parra Medina.
Thank you, Haley. Let me get my screen shared. Hopefully that you'll see the correct screen.
Yes, ma'am, everything looks good.
All right, perfect. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the Planning Committee for inviting me to be part of this conference. As Haley mentioned, I'm on faculty at the University of Texas at Austin, where I direct the Latino Research Institute. And today I've been invited to speak to you guys a little bit about the work that's happening at the Institute, what brought me to the Institute and motivated me to develop it, and also how we integrate intersectionality in the work that we do. So let me get started. I'll begin by providing a little bit more detail on my background. Then I'll talk to you a little bit about the Latino Research Institute and its 4 units, which include research, data services, community outreach, and training. So much like Haley's story, I grew up in the border, but in the border of California. And the picture on the left is where I grew up in San Isidro, which is the California border. And if you've been to Juarez or Brownsville, you know what it's like to be in the United States, and then just across the way, you see Mexico. So this is my neighborhood here in San Isidro, and this mountain area here is Tijuana. So I grew up in a very binational context. Like Haley, I am a first-generation college student. I come from a very large Mexican family. You can see on the right is a photo of my dad's family reunion. And I have my mother's side of the family, which is equally large. And I show this image because of this family. I am one of 3 that received a college education. So most of my dad's siblings, which are 9, 5 men and 4 women, received high school educations, and most of their children also only received high school educations. People were not encouraged to pursue higher education. Most of them went into the trades that their families were in. So when I was in San Isidro, there's a very small town. We had 5 elementary schools and 1 middle school, and I had to be bused in high school to another town. And so about 9th grade, I started receiving visits from this man from UCSD. I don't know, I started to get called out of my classes, and he started talking to me about getting into college and the academic requirements and counseling me on how to plan accordingly. And of course, some of you might be familiar with these programs, Upward Bound and TRIO. And so throughout my high school, I was engaged with these programs. And I remember that several of my friends would say, well, why are they giving you special tutoring and they're not giving it to me? And I really had no answer. I didn't know how or why I was involved. I usually just was a good girl and did what I was told. And so when it came time to be a senior, they said, apply to college. And so I applied to the UC system. And I planned to go to UCSD, since that's who I was building a relationship with, until a family friend mentioned that I had other options and that I was competitive enough to go to Berkeley, which was the flagship institution in California. And I was fortunate to get in, and I went to Berkeley. Of course, it's like 500 miles away. And I guess it's almost like going from the Valley to Austin, right? I'm going from the border to the San Francisco Bay Area, totally different culture, big city, all by myself, very socially isolating and stressful. And also, financially, I was very constrained, right? Because I was only on whatever financial aid packages I had, and I really didn't know how to plan my college education. So I did end up getting an academic probation my first year. I thought I wanted to be in pre-med because, you're either a doctor or a lawyer, and organic chemistry and calculus were just not my friend. And so I looked around and I happened to take a class in public health. The School of Public Health at Berkeley does not offer an undergraduate program, only a graduate program, but they did offer a couple of electives. And in this course, I was exposed to the concept of health as social justice, that everyone should receive healthcare and it's equitable, right? That it's a right, not a privilege. And so that concept intrigued me. And they also shared an example of how the University of California was partnering with local community-based organizations in the border community in San Isidro, and how they developed a community health center that eventually became a very large federally qualified health center. And so I actually was the first time that I saw my own experience and values reflected in a course that I took. And I really wanted to explore this more. So here on the bottom left, you see the San Isidro Health Center that I used to visit, that was established by UCSD, and residents would come out and visit the local communities. And this is how it looks now. It's a very large health center that provides primary care to a lot of people in the region. And so I also was fortunate to participate in a minority enrollment program for public health. So I spent a summer learning about public health, the 5 areas of public health, EPI, environmental, health administration, behavioral social sciences. So we learned about all of them. They prepped us for the GRE. They helped us write our admission statements and pick schools and programs. And so I was able to do that just before my senior year. And I was admitted to UC Berkeley, UCLA, and San Diego State University. At the time, I decided to go to San Diego State University because, of course, that's where my family was, and I happened to be expecting my first child. So I did get married in undergraduate, which is not the norm, and I was expecting my first child when I graduated. And so I thought it was better to go home near family where I would have support. And also I saw myself as being a health educator. I wanted to be working in the community in which I grew up. And the professor I was working with, John Elder, at the time actually had a project funded by the Kaiser Family Foundation that was doing nutrition education and health screening in San Isidro. So I had the opportunity to start working with my community right away. After I finished my MPH, I stayed in with the Center for Behavioral and Community Health. I learned about planning programs and evaluating them and grant writing, and I got the research bug. And so I decided to apply for a doctoral program. Again, having a young family, I decided to stay close to San Diego, and the program that they had available at that time was public health epidemiology. So I pursued my PhD in public health epidemiology, but I still stayed pretty connected to health promotion and health education. I stayed with the same mentor, and I was focusing on community intervention trials primarily. So after I graduated, one thing I didn't know when I went to a doctoral program is that universities don't hire their own graduates. So that if I wanted to get a faculty position upon completing my PhD, I was probably going to have to leave San Diego. UCSD or San Diego State were unlikely to hire me right away. So I went to APHA, the American Public Health Association meeting, and I went to their job bank, and I applied for positions and got some interviews there. And I found it fascinating that all the interviews I received were in the Southeast. I got interviews that were in Florida A&M, Clemson, South Carolina, Chapel Hill. I got an interview in Texas. And so it seemed to me that all the positions that I was qualified for or who were interested in people who were doing Latino community health were all in the East. And so one of the phenomena that was happening at the time is, go down. So this is a long time ago. Many of you probably weren't even born then, but in the 90s, this is how, oh, excuse me, let's see. Yeah, in the 90s, this is how the Hispanic population was distributed in the United States. As you can see here along the border, the dark blue is where we mostly saw Latinos, also in Florida and New York, and a little bit in Illinois. And so, of course, this is where I was trained and I was doing my work. A lot of the research I was doing focused on Latino populations in these regions. But that was 1990. The 2000 census showed that the distribution of the Latino population was shifting. So I was graduating in 1998, just prior to the 2000 census, but the census confirmed what people were already experiencing. Latino population growth was now happening in non-traditional environments. It was happening in the East and in the Midwest. So in this map, you can see the dark brown areas is where the most population growth was happening in the late 90s. And so it makes sense that these were new receiving communities. These are communities that hadn't really worked or provided health and human services for Latino populations. So they were eager to get expertise from the Southwest to the East to help them address the needs of these communities. And so I decided to go to the University of South Carolina, Arnold School of Public Health. You can see there, Carolina's been pulled out. And at the time that I went, the Hispanic population had grown 300% from 1990 to 2000. It was still small in terms of numbers, but it was a high proportion. And they had very few trained public health professionals, social workers, et cetera, to provide services to these communities. So as Haley mentioned in my bio, I started my career then at the University of South Carolina. I was in the School of Public Health in the Department of Health Promotion and Education, but I also had a joint appointment in Women and Gender Studies. So I spent half my time in public health and half my time in Women and Gender Studies. I taught mostly cultural diversity, minority health, and women's health courses. Through my connections with Women and Gender Studies, I really learned about feminist pedagogies. I was exposed to empowerment education. I was exposed also to the concept of intersectionality, which I'll go into a little bit more. So it was a time of much growth in terms of kind of my intellectual training. And I stayed there for 10 years, from assistant to associate professor. While I was there, the largest racial ethnic minority population was African American. And so while I was in South Carolina, much of my focus was on women's cardiovascular risk reduction, primarily financially disadvantaged African American women. And I did do a lot of community health and development work with Latino communities there, but and it did mostly community-based participatory research. So a lot of meetings with community, collaborating with them. We developed a coalition. We trained community health workers. I did a lot of work on the ground that really didn't translate to academic products, but that was working collaboratively with communities to meet their needs. Also, I kept trying to get funding to do my work with the Latino community there, but it was very difficult to convince funders that it was a high priority in the South. An opportunity arose in 2008 where a colleague of mine was recruited to the Health Science Center in San Antonio to establish a new institute. And she recruited me to come to San Antonio to become a member of the Institute for Health Promotion Research in the School of Medicine. So it was a bit of a different position. I could be completely focused on research. There was very little teaching that needed to happen. And I found that when I came to Texas and focused my research on South Texas, that my research program blossomed. I feel like the needs that existed in South Texas aligned well with my research expertise, my methodologies, and some of the ideas that I wanted to explore. And so I feel like I had much success in San Antonio and doing my research in South Texas. But in 2016, I was recruited to come to the University of Texas to serve as the inaugural director of the Latino Research Institute. Now, you guys are probably aware of the dynamics of the US population and the transitions that we are experiencing. So the new census is out, and Latinos are 62 million living in the US, and we now make up 19% of the US population. The Mexican Americans are the largest at 62% among the Hispanic communities. And, you know, it's a misnomer that, or a stereotype that Latinos in the US are undocumented or in the United States, but 4 out of 5 Hispanics are US citizens. Also, after California, Texas is the second largest Latino population with 11.4 million and 39%. So this is it's a large and growing population, and it's an important community in Texas. Also, we see that the population continues to grow. Right now, we're 19% of the population, but the expectation is that by 2050, we'll be 30% of the population in the United States. That's 1 out of 3 persons. Also, if you look at the United States, in 25 states, Latinos are the largest minority group. Another important aspect of the Latino population is that it's young. So if you look at the median age for Latinos in the US, it's 27 years. And you compare that to the general population, it's almost 37 years. So it's almost a 10-year difference. So our population is young and growing, and it's going to have implications for the future workforce and the economy of the state and the nation. Another difference is that the growth of the US population is being driven more by births than by immigration. So what we see then is that the US born Latinos are substantially younger. So the median age of a US born Latino is 19 compared to foreign born Latinos, that's the immigrant Latinos, which is 42. So pretty soon you can see that we have a very large, young, growing Latino population in the country, in the state. And the University of Texas and the president at that time, I believe, saw that this was an important trend. And being a public university that is supposed to serve the state, made it a priority to invest in Latino studies at UT Austin. So in 2016, when I was recruited, President Powers at the University of Texas at Austin did a couple of things. One is the Center for Mexican American Studies was a program that offered an interdisciplinary degree, and it was established in the 70s as part of the civil rights movement and ethnic studies movement at UT Austin. And that was really the only presence of US Latino studies at UT. So what the president did is he invested to develop an academic department of Mexican American and Latino studies. So now we actually have a department with tenure track faculty. We currently have 11 tenure track faculty and are continuing to grow. We now offer an undergraduate degree, or a master's certificate, as well as a PhD program. And so he also invested in establishing a research institute that would focus on Latino issues. And so that's where I was recruited to come in and develop this research institute. So at UT, we talk about Latino studies, and it's one of 3 units: the Center for Mexican American Studies, the Academic Department, Mexican American Studies, and the Research Institute, which is what I direct. And what you see here is our mission and vision. And really what we focus on is advancing knowledge that's going to sustain healthy, productive environments and promote social justice for Latino communities. That expresses a lot of what we believe in and our values. So not only do we want to do research and create new knowledge, but we're really focusing on producing healthy and productive environments. So we know that health is not only medical care, right? It's produced in communities. And we want to work collaboratively with scholars and communities to improve the well-being of our community. We do that through several actions. One, of course, is we work by establishing partnerships with community to address the issues that the community identifies as important. As I said, I'm a participatory researcher, so the important thing is start where the people are and identify the issues that they want to address. Once those are identified, of course, we try to secure funding to support the research, and then we conduct the research. Most of our research portfolio focuses on health and social equity, cultural studies, public policy, in a variety of areas, including family and children, women, mental health, and migration and health. An important aspect of what we do is translate those research findings into policy and action. So we don't want to be a center that only develops research and publishes in articles in scientific journals, but also how can we get that information out into the community so they can apply that new knowledge in real time. And we do that through a variety of communication mechanisms. Another important aspect that is really integrated in everything we do is that we focus on building and strengthening pathways to successful research careers for Latinos through a variety of programs. And we do this along the whole trajectory of community. So we have, I said, we have 4 focus areas, and I'm going to talk about each one briefly. So the research program is based on the social determinants of health framework. As I mentioned, we're talking about healthy, productive environments. So we know, as you do, right, that health is primarily influenced by health behaviors, social and societal factors, and the economic factors and the cultural factors, right? So this is where we focus our attention. We also use an intersectional framework. So what does that mean? So it's a theoretical framework or strategy that aligns very much with a participatory action research approach, where you really start with the experiences of the marginalized groups, right? So you begin to see the world through their lens, right? And when you look at their experiences, you see how they affect the individual, but also the group, the population itself, and how structures and systems create these the experiences that these communities have. So another thing about intersectionality is it identifies the fact that people have multiple identities at the same time that shape who they are and their experiences. So for example, Mexican American immigrant from the border is going to have a very different experience, context, culture than, say, for example, a Puerto Rican citizen that grows up in New York City, or a third or fourth generation Cuban in Florida, or a first generation Dominican in Florida. So what it means is that if you talk about Hispanics or Latinos, you're not really saying much about any specific group. It kind of homogenizes everything. So what intersectionality says is we have to look at specific social locations and see what's happening in those locations that is impacting people's lives. And so that's basically how we approach our research at UT, at the Latino Research Institute. You know, our research is focused on enabling social justice. We promote well-being, equitable partnerships, identifying and championing community priorities, using culturally appropriate methods, talking about implementation first, not last. So implementation science, of course, is something new, but we've been focusing on this for a while, right? Where everything I do, I collaborate with community partners, and I'm thinking about how is this going to be sustained in the long term? How do I build on the assets that the community has? And of course, making sure that our information leads to change. Here's an example of the health intervention research that we currently have. Most of my research is healthy lifestyle interventions focused on cardiovascular risk reduction, diabetes, obesity prevention and management. And most of these research studies focus on specific Latino populations. So Enlace focuses on Latinas in South Texas. Healthy Rural Texas focuses on families who live in rural communities in South Texas. And Miranos focuses on families with children in Head Start in an urban neighborhood. So you can see that all of these programs focus on this very specific Latino population in a unique setting and environment, and each of these needs to be addressed specifically. We also have a data services group, and basically what we know is there's a lot of research that's created that sits and nobody uses. So one of the things we want to do is to curate data and create archives that people can access for research purposes. So it could be community members, it could be undergraduates, masters, and doctoral students who need to do research projects, or even early career faculty who haven't really established their research yet, but need some data to kind of launch their research careers. So we focus on archiving and curating data, making data publicly available. We also provide data management support through the whole life cycle. So if there is a faculty member who wants to conduct a research study, they can contract with the Latino Data Services Group, and we will design their online surveys. We will train undergraduates and others to do the data collection. We'll process their data. We'll support them with data analysis. So we provide a very important research function for faculty. And we also have done this for community partners as well. And we also run grants through our institute. So faculty who want to apply for grants can work with our grants management staff to submit them and then also manage them after the award. Here are a couple examples of some of the recent publications that have come out from the Institute from projects that we led and supported. These are fairly recent. There was TSOPHE, the Health Education and Behavior Journal, recently put out a special issue on Hispanic Latino population. And we have a publication there that looked at health data for the last 30 years, and we evaluated where the gaps are and how we could improve data collection efforts in Latino populations. We've published a scoping review on the impact of COVID in Latino populations. And we also published a study on the effects of workplace stress and discrimination on the health of minority faculty. So these are some of the projects that we've undertaken. So as I mentioned, our work really is focused on policy. And one of the ways we do that is through communication. We have webinars, policy briefs, podcasts. We develop expert guides, so you can go to our website and find out who to contact about certain topics of interest. And just, I know I'm running behind, but I did want to share this table with you because this shows the academic public health workforce, and it shows students by race and ethnicity, the degrees that they're seeking, the degrees that have been conferred, as well as faculty in public health. And you can see here the majority of academic public health representation is in the white population at all levels for students, the degrees that are conferred, and faculty. And here you can see Latinos, even though we are 19% of the population, you can see that we do not make up that proportion in terms of people who are seeking degrees in our field. So public health has a lot to do still in terms of diversifying the student population as well as the workforce. And it's important to have this diversity, right? If we're going to address and bring all this different knowledge to bear on improving community health. And we focus on that at the LRI by developing research networks. We offer fellowships at all levels from undergraduate to advanced professors. And we also do several training programs. One activity we've done is we've developed a research network on COVID and Latinos. So you can go and see what kind of work we're doing with respect to COVID at UT. These are the different projects. You can visit our website and look at those. Also, we have a summer institute for doctoral students who are about to graduate that focuses on qualitative methods. We also focus on professional development, helping them get ready for the job market through developing CVs, bio sketches, interview skills, how to search and apply for postdocs. So not only do we focus on the methods, but we also try to get them ready to launch their academic careers. And we also focus on building social capital by providing mentoring relationships, giving them the inside scoop, everything you wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask. So we lay it out for them so they're prepared when they arrive in their new positions. And we also connect them with faculty who can mentor them and guide them in their research. So basically, I'm glad that I was asked to come and share a little bit about the Latino Research Institute. Hopefully you can see how we try to integrate meeting communities' needs, working with community to build their capacity at the same time as we're trying to develop the public health workforce, education and training programs, and hopefully have an impact long-term on our communities. So if you have more questions about the Latino Research Institute, I encourage you to come by and visit our website and reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Barmelina. We do have 2 questions. This first question says, does your institute conduct advocacy training?
We have not. There is a training that focuses on writing op-eds. So that's one thing, we're trained as researchers, so we know how to write a publication for a scientific journal, but we don't know how to write an editorial or, how to write a research brief. So what we have been doing is working with faculty on how to get their research into formats for public consumption, such as op-eds and policy.
Okay, and then the second question we have is the Week Summer Institute available for anyone? How do we apply?
So there's actually two qualitative research methods institutes. The one at UT by the Latino Research Institute is for advanced doctoral students. So if you're a doctoral student, you can apply to that and you can go to our website and get more information. If you have already gotten your PhD, so you're a postdoc or early career faculty member, there's an institute that focuses on that level, and that's held at the University of Maryland College Park by our partners at that university. So right now, our programs they're open, but they're primarily for advanced doctoral students or early career professionals. If there's interest, reach out if, other levels or maybe communities are interested, or even, professionals might be interested in some of this work. I'm definitely willing to talk to people and explore what kinds of opportunities are available to make it more accessible to people, for sure.
All righty, if we have any other questions, I will go ahead and forward. I know Eva's also placing some links for the LRI in the chat as well. We can forward that information via email too. So please join me in thanking Dr. Barra Medina for opening up our conference as keynote speaker.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. All righty, so we are going to go ahead and transition back into our first session of the day. Our first oral session. So Amaka will be your moderator for session 1. Amaka, do you want to go ahead and take over from here?
All right, thank you, Haley. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amaka Agbor. I am part of the TSOPHE board. I serve as the president-elect, and I'm also on the program planning committee. I'll be your moderator for session 1, which is leadership, mentorship, and training the public health workforce. Please allow me to introduce our presenters for this session. Our first session, which is fostering public health leaders, how DSHS is building partnerships with colleges and universities to inspire future professions. Mr. Craig Gilden is currently the education coordinator in the Office of Practice and Learning at DSHS, where he coordinates public health workforce development initiatives, including internships, medical residency, grant-funded initiatives, professional development offerings, and university engagement. Before coming to DSHS, Craig spent nearly a decade working in higher education at UT Austin and Southwestern University in roles related to experiential learning, career development, and academic success. Mr. Gilden holds a BA in communications from Lewis and Clark College and a master's in education and higher education administration from UT Austin. Craig lives in North Austin with his wife, Alyssa, and his 3 kids, Joey, 6, Shayna, 4, and Michael, 1. Our second presenters, which are presenting on responsive resourcing, a collaborative model of resource matching between community health workers and undergraduate studies. Audrey Wan currently serves as the 3rd ward lead and the project head of responsive resourcing. She serves as an intern for the Community Health Worker Initiative. Radha Noon currently serves as the New Hope Housing and Sunnyside lead and the project head of responsive resourcing. And Olivia Tran currently serves as the East End Hub co-lead and co-founder of the former Community Health Worker Initiative intern. She is also the former project head of responsive resourcing. Our last presenters, which are presenting on peers, innovative approaches to transitioning a peer mentoring program in an online format. Our speakers, Lucinda Baugh, graduated from the University of Houston Honors College in spring 2021, double majoring in biology and psychology with a minor in medicine and society. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, she collaborated with community health workers, undergraduate leaders, and UH faculty to develop the Responsive Resourcing Project. As head of the Project Engagement Encouragement Rising Students, peers, otherwise known as peers, she developed curriculum and workshops for high school students to develop community health interventions relating to their lived experiences. Lucinda has the privilege of mentoring 2 high school teams and undergraduate mentors that on projects involving sex education and telehealth, which won the 2019-2020 Peers Competition. As project head coordinator in the organization honors in the community health, she has guided students in developing and managing sustainable community health interventions and service projects rooted in community needs. Lucinda believes addressing health disparities requires understanding the unique needs of the population and leveraging existing community capacities. As a 2021 Ferris Fellow, she aims to use data analysis not only to evaluate community health, but also to explore the intersection of it in psychology and healthcare. Also presenting with her, Daniel Fu is a first-year medical student with experience in leveraging diverse partnerships, population health research, and community-based initiatives to narrow health disparities. As an undergraduate, Daniel headed Peers, an initiative designed to improve research and project building skills in high school students through project-based learning, and Breathe, a respiratory wellness education program for elementary school students. Daniel received his Bachelor of Science in Biology with minors in Medicine and Society and Health from the University of Houston Honors College. Right now, we ask that you hold all questions until the end of the session for our presenters. Also, all CHES and MCHES attendees, you're required to fill out an evaluation for each session if you're trying to receive CE credits. A link for our online evaluation form will be posted at the end of this session. Let us welcome our first presenter, Mr. Greg Gilding, who's presenting on fostering public health leaders, how DSHS is building partnerships with colleges and universities to inspire future professions. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. I will go ahead and share my screen here when I have a chance. And I will do my best to be brief, not always my strong suit, but okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, and thank you for the nice introduction. So I am the education coordinator with the Texas Department of State Health Services, as Maka mentioned, and I work in our Office of Practice and Learning. The mission of our office is workforce development, and that's kind of training and developing the future public health workforce of Texas. So we do that both through kind of internal professional development, and then I'm talking today more externally focused about partnering with universities on engaging that. So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of give a really brief overview of a few different ways that we work with universities. So y'all can see the kind of vision statement have there. And the reason that I think this is really important, and Dr. Medina in her presentation talked about when she was starting college, she knew about being a doctor or lawyer, and those were the two kind of paths. And the reality is someone can't search for a job that they don't know exists. And so I think probably as you're thinking about everyone's own individual journeys and how you ended up working in public health, I'm sure for a lot of people, it's not necessarily like a straight line. And that's true for most students. I mean, anecdotally, in my experience, lots and lots of students start college and they're pre-med. And that's kind of the context that folks have is being, you have a pediatrician growing up and you know about doctors. And so that's what you know when you think of healthcare. And a lot of students don't know about public health. So it's incumbent on us as those who want to grow the public health workforce and get more talented young people interested and excited about working in public health to make sure they know about this and they know it exists. Because while everyone here today found that path, there's definitely a lot of people out there that didn't find that path and maybe would have been great public health professionals, but just don't know it exists. So the first thing, and I guess too, I just wanted to say, because I know this is brief, is really my goal here today is to kind of open the door to collaboration, whether that's with those of y'all here that are faculty at universities or work in local health departments, to kind of think about how we at DSHS can support and work together towards that mutual goal of connecting more people to careers in public health and helping them give pathways towards that. So I'll talk about our internship program and how it's structured and why there's a lot of value in having a structured internship program rather than just individual interns, and then talk about some of our other programming we offer, and then ways that we've collaborated with universities, and hopefully it will expand that. So I'm sure that many of y'all know, or most of y'all know what an intern is, and probably in your various organizations have hosted interns. So at DSHS, we of course do that, and we're a large organization, really hope as things stabilize a little bit with COVID-19 and our staff has a little bit more bandwidth to expand our opportunities for hosting interns across the agency. And it's really important for us to have a diverse set of interns, also in terms of kind of the institutions that they come from and different backgrounds. Of course, we work a lot with Masters of Public Health students, but there's a lot of skills that it takes in a big public health organization, and having a diversity of institutions and majors and different backgrounds is important. The reason, one reason it's really important for organizations to host interns is there is research that shows that retention rates of staff are significantly higher when they've already had some experience at an organization. So such as an internship or volunteer experience. Think about it, they have better knowledge of the organization, they have better idea of what they're getting into. So that really makes sense. So this is just a little bit about what the intern class looks like. And then along with kind of the project-based, the specific project and office they're working in, there's a lot of value in making sure that interns are feeling connected to the organization as a whole and are able to get beyond the silo of the specific office they're working with and learn more about DSHS. So interns are really ambassadors for our organization and working in public health in general. And so while they are going to spend a lot of their time working in one particular office, it's important to give them knowledge and scope as much as possible for the rest of the organization. And also to help them feel connected. So they, especially virtually when all of our students are really working remote and separate from each other and the staff, making sure they feel connected as much as possible. So some of the ways we do that are through offering networking conversations and professional development through resume reviews or mock interviews. We've done a variety of virtual presentations to get them more knowledgeable about the scope and other things that happen at our agency, give them the opportunity to connect with one of our executive level leaders. We do an orientation so they can connect with the other interns. And then we also do at the end of the semester, kind of intern showcase celebration where they can present their work, and we invite their university faculty, and they could invite family or whoever. And these have all happened virtually and over the past year and a half. We post our positions online. And then just to note, at this point, I'm sure as many of y'all know in your organizations, funding is a challenge, but We are trying to work towards being able to offer more paid opportunities. And fortunately, through some access to some grant funding, we've been able to provide stipends to a number of our interns this past summer and fall, and hoping to expand upon that. But we do have a kind of formal application process, and that's because the amount of interest we get is too high to kind of just individually match with everyone. And it really does provide a more robust experience when the office has like a specific idea of how they're incorporating that intern and project for them to work on. Also want to talk about other ways that we're doing experiential learning beyond kind of the intensive internship model. So that is providing programming. So some of this is ones that we schedule, and through kind of the ability to do things virtually, that has opened up the ability to connect with students in El Paso and Amarillo and Tyler all at the same time, which is really cool to kind of have that scope. So the programs that we've offered so far and will continue to do. So these are where we say, you know, we're offering this educational programming, and then we'll let faculty across the state know that it's happening, that they could promote to their students. So we've done one on just what is public health. So that might be for undergrad population that isn't necessarily in academic public health discipline, just giving them some basics of understanding of what are we even talking about when we say public health, and then, you know, what are potential careers that could exist within that. We've done one on that's just an overview of DSHS. So teaching about the different parts of the agency and what happens within kind of all the different divisions and things that the state health department does. And then various what I would call careers in panels. So that's where we have maybe 2 or 3 different staff members from DSHS in a certain area, so such as epidemiology or environmental health, that would talk about their jobs and their career paths and be able to connect with students interested in those fields. And then we are also work on kind of collaborating with university faculty for content that would be helpful to them. And this is kind of a ongoing and thing that's developing as we kind of get feedback from university partners. So some of that would be going into classes and speaking about a topic. So that might be more general, like an overview of the agency or just talking about public health. But the slide here is an example of, this was nursing students at TCU. So a couple of our DSHS nurses could talk about public health nursing more specifically and the work that they do. So that could kind of just depend on the class and the student population and what the faculty needs, whether it's like my ability and knowledge is kind of more on the like overview of the agency or overview of public health. But if someone wanted to get more on like specifically, you know, what happens in immunizations or what does an immunization professional do, I would kind of work with our staff that are content experts in that area to get them involved. Project-based learning, so that's where we could partner with a class that is maybe as part of their class, they're doing a needs assessment, and we have, you know, one of our offices could come in and talk about needs assessments they do related to community health project, and there could be an opportunity to collaborate with the students so they can, you know, apply kind of like a real world example to what they're learning in class. Also happy to talk to different kinds of student organizations. And then lastly, participating in on-campus or virtual events, which there's a variety of. And I really think that it's super, super important for us, especially in governmental public health, to get our faces in front of students in a wide variety of disciplines across the state. But certainly if a student's studying public health in Texas, we need to be talking to them. There is research that shows that people are more likely to apply to organizations in which they know someone or they've talked to someone from there before. There's also been research on the governmental public health workforce, and some of the kind of the qualitative research there is students feeling that it's bureaucratic or kind of faceless, and that if you're going to our job board, it feels like just kind of a black hole of applying, and there isn't like a specific person to talk to. And so the more students that we can connect with and that they know, oh, okay, this is someone who works at DSHS, this is what the organization does, it feels like a friendlier place to interact with. And just for public health workforce in general, making sure that students have a contact person, that have someone that they can associate with that and talk to about it. Okay, I don't know how I did on time, but I tried to go quickly, and would love to connect with other people here and your organizations and the ways that we can work together.
Thank you so much, Craig. You did wonderful on time. And so let us welcome our second presenters of the session, Audrey Wan, Radha Noon, and Olivia Tran with the Community Health Worker Initiative.
Sorry, my my video is not working, so I'm just gonna keep my video off. But let's see. Okay. All right. Hello, good morning. My name is Audrey Huang, and I'll let my other presenters present their names as well.
Hello, my name is Radha Moon.
My name is Olivia Tran.
And welcome to our presentation on responsive resourcing and its collaborative model on resource matching between CHWs and undergraduate students. So what is RR? RR, or Responsive Resourcing, is a partnership between student volunteers at the University of Houston and local community health workers, or like what we would like to call them, CHWs. Through Zoom, and CHWs come together in sessions we called virtual feedback loop meetings to discuss the individual needs of the community members that the CHWs had met in their respective geographic hubs, Third Ward, New Hope Housing, Sunnyside, and East End. And during these virtual feedback loop meetings on Zoom, student volunteers would utilize online search engines to collectively gather existing local resources that could satisfy the requests of the community members. And at the same time, the CHWs would provide live feedback as students present their resources during the meeting. CHWs would then take the resources collected by the student volunteers and then match them to the community members and their needs. So the CHWs that work alongside our student volunteers were all certified under the University of Houston Community Health Workers Initiative, or the UHCHWI, and their CHW certification course, which is about, it's 160 hours, and it's offered in both English and Spanish to university students, community members, professionals, just anyone who is interested in becoming CHWs themselves. And in this course, the CHWs have to learn how to utilize each other's strengths to efficiently work in collaboration in a team, and also to gain a deeper understanding of the social determinants of health in the Houston area through project-based learning. And I will let Olivia talk about the growth of responsive resourcing.
All right. So the RR program, we started it in April 2020 to discuss and address the immediate barriers that the COVID-19 pandemic, and since then it's evolved to like address the different barriers that the community faces currently and during other crises as well. So over the summer of 2020, the community health workers would post their resource requests, and students would use Search Engine or Wellnity, which is a collaborative platform for social and community health workers. So they would use these platforms to search for resources and like send them back to the community health workers. And we also held a newborn supply drive based on direct feedback from the CHWs about the resources that the community lacked. And we'll go more in depth into the structure over that summer in the next slide. But we realized that the students at CHWs would benefit from more synchronous interaction instead of just the CHWs like, publishing what resources they needed and the students responding. So in fall 2020 and spring 2021, we introduced virtual but synchronous feedback loops. And these were meetings in which students were able to discuss if the resources they found were actually being used by community members. And beginning this fall, we've been able to transition safely back to more in-person activities, such as allowing students to shadow the CHWs in the field. They can gain that firsthand experience and see how the resources are being used. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a visual about what the resource matching towards the beginning of RR looked like. So there were the different platforms that we used, including Microsoft Teams. We just used common search engines like Google as well as Wellnity. So in April, there was a CHW mediated story collection and a needs and assets survey conducted by the U of H Community Health Workers Initiative. And they found that the resources that the community members expressed a need for could be grouped into different categories, such as children's education and care, financial assistance and healthcare assistance, lack of home supplies, and things like that. So we grouped our students' teams into that based on their interest. But as Ronnie will discuss soon, we soon realized that the geographic hubs would be more effective than the structure that are based on like the different resource categories. We thought that actual geographic hubs would be more effective because the students weren't feeling engaged through this structure and the CHWs were having to re-verify resources before sharing them.
So to improve resource matching and to improve those issues Olivia just mentioned, RR adapted to a different model where the separate hubs that we created were instead formed based on geographic location instead of disparity categories. So this allowed for the resources to be more closely tailored to the needs of the community because centralizing those hubs to location allowed for more specific and more direct resource matching. So our first 3 hubs that we created included Third Ward, East End, and Sunnyside and New Hope. And each hub was led by a project head. We had 2 CHWs in every hub as well as student volunteers. And through these hubs, the students were able to more closely work with the CHWs, which solved that prior issue of that lack of engagement. And the resource matching also adapted from an asynchronous to a synchronous format. So resource matching occurred live right there within feedback loop meetings. And that way students were able to verify those resources right when they were found directly with the CHWs. And so that solved that prior issue of re-verification and again, improved student engagement with the CHWs. Through these geographic hubs, RR is able to serve underserved Houston communities located right near the University of Houston. One of Responsive Resourcing's largest hubs is Third Ward, which is a community that has been consistent since our beginnings, as UH is located directly in Third Ward, and it also houses the CUNY Homes Housing Project. And other hubs we've created include the New Hope Housing Apartment Complex, Sunnyside, as well as East End. And currently we're working on sustaining new community partnerships with the Gulfton and the Sharpstown area that forms the Southwest Hub and the combined Sunnyside and Pasadena area. The Southwest Hub has a diverse refugee population and the Pasadena area has a mostly Spanish-speaking community. So RR is currently in the process of adapting so that our students are better equipped to work with these multilingual communities.
So our current structure employs a strengths-based approach through the CHWs and the undergraduate students. So first, the CHWs live in the communities that they serve, and therefore they already have trust from the local residents. And this allows them to advocate for health in a unique way. And on the other hand, the younger undergraduate students are more skilled in internet navigation, and they're also increasingly learning about the respective geographic hubs that they're assigned to through workshops led by the RR student leaders with CHW input. And finally, the CHWs are able to introduce students to their communities via shadowing. And that way students can gain a deeper understanding of health education and advocacy from the grassroots level. And so they're better able to apply this to the weekly feedback loops for resource matching.
So in addition to the resource matching and our feedback loop sessions, RR also holds a series of centralized workshops that allow for the CHWs and the student volunteers of RR from across all hubs to join together, which improves community building within RR. These centralized workshops provide public health education regarding the specific challenges our communities face. So for example, a common resource request during our feedback loop meetings is for nutrition and food-related needs. So we created a centralized workshop over SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And in this workshop, students were able to learn about the function of SNAP, how one would qualify for it, and how it may be used. And during the interactive portion of the session, the students were challenged to create a grocery list or a meal plan for the week, given a realistic budget that a community member may have. So students were virtually shopping using real life grocery stores like Kroger to find food items and their specific prices, and making sure that they the whole time followed through with the limited budget. So the workshop then concluded with an engaging discussion between the students regarding the meaning of food and the social stigma that is often found regarding food assistance. So with these combined portions with an informational, interactive, and a discussion portion, our workshops are able to increase public health education and also awareness of the barriers that directly affect the hubs that RR serves.
So going forward with in-person activities opening back up at the University of Houston, we are offering students both online and in-person opportunities. Our feedback loop meetings, initially virtual, will still be virtual with the CHWs. However, we will be incorporating virtual and in-person workshops for the students. And this semester is also the first time we are introducing the CHW shadowing program, as mentioned earlier, in which students can better understand the work that the CHWs do. So if they want to become CHWs themselves, they'll know what to expect. And finally, we are adding in 2 new hubs, as mentioned before, the Pasadena and Southwest. As you heard before, the Pasadena hub is largely a Spanish-speaking hub, and the Southwest hub is largely diverse. And the students in those hubs will be exposed to the challenges of finding resources for the requests there. And our students and CHWs have been showing great excitement for what's to come for RR, and we can't wait to show them what we have in store for them. And we would also like to give a huge thank you to those who have supported us since the beginning. And that concludes our presentation. I hope you learned a lot, and feel free to contact us for any questions and follow us on our social media to stay updated on what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey, Radha, and Olivia for that wonderful presentation. Now we are going to welcome our final presenters of the session, Lucinda Ba and Daniel Fu with Pierce.
I'll be sharing my screen. Okay, so you guys see the slides, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay, let me turn on my laser pointer. Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for having us. So my name's Lucinda and I'm here with Daniel to talk about the Peers program. So we both graduated from the University of Houston this past spring and we're project heads for a mentorship program called Peers, which is short for Project Engagement Encouraging Rising Students. So the Peers program is funded by the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Data Science Institute in partnership with the University of Houston Honors College, Honors in Community Health, and the UH Community Health Workers Initiative, which our previous presenters talked about too.
So just as a brief summary, We have undergrad mentors who work with high school teams to explore community and population health in Houston. Together, they come up with solutions and present them at our annual competition. So today is just going to be an overview of the program and how we've been operating over the last 3 years. And then we're just hoping that any of this is relevant enough to some of the other professionals at this conference where we can open doors for collaboration.
So as Daniel elaborated, PEERS is a mentorship program and Houston-based community health initiative that is also an annual competition. So the program leverages the capacity of teens as influencers and community health advocates and relies on collaboration towards a definitive community health intervention. So we hope to begin and continue a conversation about community health and forge a better foundation for responsive engagement with real world problems, despite the limitations that have been imposed by this pandemic. So typically every year, students are hypothetically given $5 million to address community health disparities in Houston. And annual themes have included preventative care, wellness during the COVID-19 pandemic, and for this coming school year, increasing mental health care access. So through guided discussions and activities, our scholars work to fit their learned skills into their lived experience. And eventually, we hope all our students feel empowered to advocate for positive health outcomes outside of just peers. And lastly, through our PBL model and these mentor-mentee relationships, we hope the high school students receive the guidance to pursue higher education and careers in STEM.
This is what our typical timeline looks like. For 2 semesters, the students work through modules, weekly modules that walk them through designing community health projects. And then at the end of the year, they present those for monetary prizes at our annual competition in May. So the students also enjoy college readiness and pre-professional workshops. So we provide around 2 per year.
So here we'll be going over recruitment. As you can see, the program has grown in scale over the past 3 years. And if you look on this chart right here, in the 2019 to 2020 school year, we recruited undergrad mentors in person. But with this past year, with everything going virtual, we recruited about 96% of our mentors asynchronously and mainly through email listservs and through the umbrella student organization, Honors in Community Health. So for our high school students, we typically reach out to Houston ISD college coordinators, contacts at low-income housing units, and Houston community health workers. But this year, our undergrad mentors were also encouraged to reach out to their alma mater high schools. So you can see on the chart, you know, the large portion of referrals through that. And with the program going online, our reach in Houston was greater and includes multiple districts in the Houston area and surrounding, and public charters in addition to HISD. And so students across Houston collaborated with other students from different areas who they normally would not collaborate with.
Our main methods for evaluation were weekly debriefing sessions led by our site leaders and focus group interviews. Most of them were pretty open-ended and frequent, and that just let us as project heads respond very quickly to any mentor or mentee concerns. From the evaluations, we could see that what set us apart from other opportunities on campus was that the mentors and mentees felt like their own decisions were making direct impacts on their communities.
So with the program, we wanted students to understand that these skills they're developing can be translated to their future careers. So both high school and undergraduate students empower themselves and build capacity on an individual level, which positively impacts the communities they advocate for during and outside of peers. So our curriculum relies on near-peer mentorships. The older undergraduate students have a stronger grasp of 21st century presentation, research, and management skills. And these college students recently graduated enough to be relatable and bond with the high schoolers, rather than just having you know, professors come in and try to teach these kids. It's just much easier to relate to a college student who may have just, you know, graduated from high school last year. So rather than just having these undergraduate mentors just teach the students, we encourage them to all work together towards constructing a meaningful community health solution and asking critical questions along the way and developing all their skills.
So the main goal of our curriculum is to empower students with the skills and the confidence they need to be positive agents of change. They begin with the context of their own lives, and as they go through the lessons, they learn to, one, define community health problems that are relevant to them, and two, articulate actionable solutions. So we chose a PBL model so they could build skills from their own experiences, and we chose to kind of loosely follow the CHW model for interdisciplinary community outreach and engagement. So meaning that the high schoolers' context decides their relevance and the priority of the health issues. Our curriculum provides them the tools that they need to effectively navigate those issues. And of course, the undergrads are there to facilitate the whole learning process. When COVID hit, we used a combination of Microsoft Teams and Google Drive, Daggity and Mural to transition online. Since geography was not really a barrier anymore, we could group the students by interest. You can see the tracks on the left-hand side. We did that instead of grouping them by school. So the conversations were a lot more engaging and productive. They could talk about the same issues and how they were manifesting in different communities, so they could dive deeper into those issues. However, despite that major advantage, we're still pretty excited to go back in person. For one, the in-person activities and discussions were a lot more engaging than the online ones. And also there was a big learning curve in the online formats that just wasn't present in the in-person lessons. So moving forward, we're working on a hybrid model that incorporates the strengths from both formats.
So like Daniel said, our program was all virtual this year and everyone stayed social from home. So we were able to implement inclusive activities taking advantage of this sort of setting. So for example, if you look over here, here's a part of a module we designed where students understood the interdependent dimensions of wellness by picking out clothes from their wardrobe to create an outfit for really funny scenarios. So on the next slide, we'll see how that activity kind of played out. So we wanted our mentors and mentees to creatively use the resources within the reach at their homes and collaborate to create an outfit where everyone contributed. So this was essentially an interactive activity embodying systems thinking and showed how individuals in a community work together and contribute existing resources to build the community's capacity. So mentors and mentees applied this to the interdependent nature of the 7 dimensions of wellness. And then they drafted these mind maps in the tool Daggity, and later they refined them to use in their final presentation, like at the top left.
Our competition day is designed very much like a professional conference. This is an example of a final poster that one of our winning teams came out with, and the teams would present to local CHWs, public health workers, UH faculty and staff, and then some of the other participants and peers. This particular team created a holistic refugee adjustment program that took into mind all of the unique challenges that their own families went through on their journey to the US. This is another example. The team came up with public supply depots for homeless populations, and that idea was based on the students' own experience of seeing homeless people without proper protection from COVID-19. This is another example. It's a food insecurity program that's designed to improve academic wellness. So as you can see, the main objective of our program is to provide community members the tools they need to navigate the health issues around them and articulate solutions to potential stakeholders.
So this past May, we hosted our competition in conference format. The students presented their projects to a panel of judges and participated in a Q&A over Zoom. For a compendium with all of our program participants and the 10 diverse abstracts for each of our high school teams' community health interventions, feel free to scan this QR code right here or visit the bit.ly for the PDF. So peers wouldn't be where it is today without collaboration and feedback. If you'd like to reach out to us, please email us and the current leadership team will follow up. And feel free to also visit our website and socials and to read more about us as well. Lastly, we'd like to sincerely thank our sponsors as well as Dr. Andrew Capperell and Dr. Daniel Price for their guidance and advice throughout the years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucinda and Daniel. At this moment, we're going to open the floor for any questions. If you have any questions, you can drop it inside the Q&A or the chat box. We actually have one question. This question says, what are some strategies that was used to communicate with stakeholders in a way that they understand? I'm not sure who this question is geared towards. Oh, actually, it's for anyone on the panel to discuss. So the question was, what are some strategies that was used to communicate with stakeholders in a way that they understand? And maybe first, if Audrey, Radha, or Olivia could take that question.
Yeah, so I feel like for us, the main people involved in our like responsive resourcing project were mostly the undergraduate students, the U of H faculty, and the community health workers. So the students themselves like signed up for this, and we mostly reached out to them through like methods of communication that they already used, and we had like bi-weekly workshops for them to like learn more about like the community health issues surrounding the area so that they would understand exactly, you know, their purpose in the project. And as for the CHWs, we mostly, so they already are like involved in the Community Health Workers Initiative. Most of them trained and received their certification through U of H and are well acquainted with the U of H Community Health Worker Initiative, like faculty and staff. And the community health workers. So there was a lot of collaboration and really helped the communication go smoother. Although I feel like at the beginning there were issues just because like the platforms that the students used were different from the ones that the community health workers used. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, and then for upcoming future events, because we are doing more of a hybrid format, we are expecting even more improvements with the communications involving the students and the CHWs, because like Olivia has said, that virtual barrier has basically caused a little bit of a boundary between communications. And so with the inclusion of in-person events, we're hoping that the students and the CHWs get to connect more and grow a stronger relationship and collaborate even more.
Thank you. We'll give one more moment to see if anybody has any more questions to ask in the Q&A or in the chat box. Okay, so we do have a question, and this one is directed towards peers. This question is, has going virtual impacted engagement or motivation at all?
Oh, okay, so it in some ways it has, in some ways it hasn't. One of the biggest problems that we saw was like Zoom fatigue. So the students spend around 8 hours on Zoom or Microsoft Teams every day, and then to like come to another session after that, that was also on virtual platforms, was kind of tiring for them. And also it was a lot easier for them to, for the high schoolers to miss meetings just because there was no one at the school next door in the room waiting for them to come there. So in that kind of hindered our efforts a little bit, but online kind of helped us in some other ways. We were definitely a lot more flexible and adaptable, so we could adapt to geography and time restraints. I think it was also a lot more engaging for the students to be paired with someone who was across the city, but also wanted to talk about food insecurity with them, or someone who's across the city, but also wanted to talk about healthcare access. And we also paired the mentors based on interest as well. So when the mentors applied, we asked them which track would you be most interested in, and we were able to pair mentors and mentees. And so so even though like there were a lot of challenges that I'm sure everyone else has faced over the last couple of years regarding to online fatigue, that kind of accessibility and flexibility also helped us.
Thank you. Does the Community Health Worker Initiative Group, would y'all like to add anything to that? Okay, so we're going to go into our final question. This last question is for anyone on the panel. What are some ideas you have explored or thought about to sustain the initiatives going forward?
So, sorry, in regards to your initial question, we did have issues with going in virtual because when we first started, we were completely virtual. So it was already difficult to build a relationship between the CHWs and the students. And as like a founding project, it was a challenge for sure. But then it also brought us opportunities because it gave the convenience to the CHWs and the students to become more involved with the project from the comfort of their homes. But going forward, now that we are going hybrid, we are hoping to bring that convenience in from the virtual format, but also the more engaging aspect of being in person and having those two advantages put together in our structure for the future. And as for some ideas we have explored to sustain the initiatives going forward, so in the middle of the COVID pandemic, we incorporated workshops. And this idea was essentially tested out to see if students would become more engaging with our project. But soon we were able to use this the workshop idea to educate our students on the public health issues that have been plaguing our Houston community for the longest time. And through like engaging activities, social activities, as well as incorporating essential lessons about public health, we think that this would really benefit the students in participating in our project. And this is something we are going to be doing for the duration of the project. Sorry, go ahead, Olivia.
Oh, no, I was just going to add on to that. But yeah, so we have, so on the CHW side, like if anything, the demand for CHWs has even like increased during like the COVID pandemic because the University of Houston and the Third Ward and surrounding areas have been looking for a lot of community health workers to address vaccine hesitancy. So there's just been sort of an increasing demand for their help and their work. And it's nice for them to have like undergraduate students to help them out, and also for the students to gain experience. So we see that as a continuing thing into the future. And on the student side, so this started in, as we mentioned earlier, April 2020. And since then, like we've gone through like several different student leaders who lead this project, as well as there's always like been one intern. So first it was myself and now it's Audrey, like an intern who's like in charge of like communicating with the U of H faculty and the CHWs who are leading this. And then the students are recruited from the parent organization Honors in Community Health, which recruits students every year who are interested in community health and public health. So we see this as something that can be sustained in the future through the enthusiasm of new students who are recruited every year.
Thank you. That's going to wrap up our Q&A portion. I want to thank all the presenters in this session. Right now, for attendees, I will drop the evaluation link in the chat. And this link is if you're trying to receive CE credits, this form must be filled out and submitted. And at this moment, we're going to move into a brief break and we'll see everyone back in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our second oral session. Lakeisha will be the moderator for the session. Lakeisha, do you want to take over from here?
Absolutely. Good morning. My name is Lakeisha Brown. I am a member of the TSOPHE Planning Committee, as well as Secretary of the TSOPHE Board. I am your moderator for Session 2, Systems Thinking, Interconnectedness, and Health in All Policies. Please allow me to introduce our presenters for this session. Dr. Simi Patel has over 18 years of experience providing dental care to patients, many of whom are from vulnerable and at-risk communities. Specifically, Dr. Patel has delivered care to most of the shelters in the Dallas Metroplex and has served patients who are homeless, victims of domestic violence, victims of sexual trafficking, recovering alcoholics, and drug addicts and inmates. Dr. Patel also teaches 3rd and 4th year dental students at Texas A&M College of Dentistry and in the extramural clinics, Agape and North Dallas Shared Ministries. Brianna Lewis, another speaker, is a research coordinator too at the University of Texas Health Science Center School of Public Health. Brianna has worked with UT Health for 6 years in reproductive health research and now also serves as a project specialist in the Office of Public Health Practice and Engagement. Brianna is currently studying for her DRPH in Health Promotion and Behavioral Sciences and is in her 4th year of study. Sylvia Ayeko is also a doctoral student at the University of Texas Health Science Center School of Public Health. Please hold all questions for our presenters until the end of the session. For those of you seeking CHES credits, you are required to fill out an evaluation for each session. I will place the link for the evaluation in the chat at the end of each session. Dr. Simi Patel, the floor is yours.
Can everyone see my screen?
I don't think it's coming. Oh, does everyone see?
Can everyone see?
I do not see your slides.
Okay. Let me try this again. Sorry.
No worries.
What about now?
Perfect.
Something happened to my screen. Hold on just a second. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Can you see it now? We good?
Yes, ma'am. It looks good.
I just want to thank everyone and then especially the committee for allowing us to present our perspective from a community dental clinic on the, what we have learned, especially from the beginning of the pandemic. So the title of our presentation is Pandemic Lessons in Public Health Dentistry, a case study from 2 community clinics in Dallas, Texas. Texas A&M College of Dentistry has contracts in place with 2 community dental clinics to help the underserved North Texas. We have many uninsured, underserved dental patients. And so we have these contracts in place. So the objectives is to identify the impact of COVID-19 on access and affordability of dental care from community dental clinic patients in Dallas, describe the operational and emotional challenges experienced by dental providers in the first 6 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, and see if we can come up with some system level solutions to improve access and quality of community dentistry the service delivery in the future, and including education and advocacy strategies. So normal activities for community dental clinics are, and especially in our department, public health sciences, is we do back to school fairs. We have our community dental clinics. We have community events. We do health fairs across Dallas-Fort Worth. Then we're also responsible for the juvenile detention center and helping the residents there with their teeth. Dental disease does not go away. We do the school sealant program, seniors. We have a seniors program, and it's all this work is done by our public health sciences faculty, staff, and of course, our dental students. So as far as, when the COVID response, we called during when the pandemic started, we called the ERs in Dallas, the Dallas area, and we told them to send any emergent dental needs to our community clinics to help them any bottleneck during, especially, they're trying to treat their COVID patients, and we didn't want to overwhelm the system. We were also working with the skeletal staff, and then we had no students providing care in the beginning of the pandemic due to school regulations. So we had 1 to 2 faculty per clinic. And, some of the patient barriers pre-pandemic for dental care are medical comorbidities, unmet behavioral health needs, limited English proficiency, under or uninsured, low socioeconomic status, and low educational attainment. And we all know that even if you have dental insurance, it really does, it kind of works differently than medical insurance in that it doesn't cover much, and people are still having to pay a lot out of their pocket, and a lot of people still can't afford dental care. So our case study is specifically around March 17th to June 30th of 2020. And then by March 22nd, 2020, we had an executive order from Governor Abbott where we can only provide emergent care. And so, no elective dental care was to be provided, meaning like no cleanings, even unless you have an ulcer with a denture, not delivering dentures, no crowns, things like that. And so our case study also is between 2 community dental clinics, our North Dallas Shared Ministries Clinic and the Agape Clinic. So I'll give you kind of a little background on our North Dallas Shared Ministries Clinic. Normally, pre-pandemic, it was serving 65,000 clients annually, and we have many different services. It wasn't just from the dental clinic. All our patients are uninsured, and they're all 200% below the federal poverty level. And the services available in our clinic is our medical services, thanks to UT Southwestern, dental services, thanks to A&M College of Dentistry. We have our food pantry and clothing assistant, nutrition classes. We have pastoral counseling. Emergency assistance would be like assistance with rent, taxes, legal assistance, things like that. And then we have our second clinic, which is closer to the dental college. It's Agape downtown. And we have greater than 17,000 patient visits. It's usually a donation-based system. And then our services available are medical, primary care, specialty services, women's health. We have our dental services, and we have different community programs that come through too. And so the impact of COVID on our community clinics, of course, was we had decreased patient volume due to the governor's executive order, no preventative or comprehensive care, and it was our priority to reduce ER visits for dental related emergencies, and we had to do COVID screening for all patients before they enter the building. So you can see the COVID really impacted how many dental cases we were able to treat. The exams were markedly reduced from 2019 to 2020. Our extractions are when we take out teeth, again, markedly reduced between 2019 and 2020, and fillings were substantially reduced. So part of the mandate by the governor was that we could not do aerosolized procedures. And that's a problem, because even with fillings, we know that whenever you run the drill, it's going to be aerosolized. So that really made it hard. So you're probably wondering, well, how can you even do 47 fillings? A lot of it was, we had to go back to, it's like practicing when dentistry first began, where we weren't using aerosols at all. We were having to literally take a hand instrument and scoop out the caries or cavities. And that takes a long time. And so it was very frustrating for most of us. Extraction, same thing. Sometimes you go into an extraction, you don't know if you're going to need to run the drill because the tooth may break, may fracture. So that was hard. And so we had to choose our cases very well, so that hopefully it didn't go surgically. And then the exams, we were just limited to emergency exams. And so that really reduced our numbers. And then the impact, of course, on our patients, the pandemic was really great. They had no access to preventive or comprehensive care. And some of the barriers for their dental care was price, obviously, insurance, transportation. Their private practices were closed, and the clinics or some of the community clinics in our area were closed. And of course, ERs were flooded with COVID patients. And so a lot of people with dental needs weren't going to the ER because they were afraid, like most of us. And what do you do when you have a toothache and your private dental office is closed, or you've lost your job and you no longer have dental insurance? What do you do? And these were problems many people face. And so the faces of our patients change, if you will. Before, we saw a lot of patients from nursing homes, shelters, undocumented patients, victims of human trafficking. And now we're seeing our neighbors, our friends, relatives easily, because a lot of people didn't have insurance, or there were furloughs, and many people lost their jobs at the beginning of the pandemic too. So the faces were changing. So this is the food pantry. This is the food pantry line at North Dallas Shared Ministries. And during the period of from March 16th to April 2nd alone, 2020, 703 households were helped by the food pantry with around a little bit over 27,000 pounds of food at a value of approximately $52,000, which, that's amazing. And if you probably can't see it in this picture, but most of the volunteers in the food pantry are volunteers that are over, and they're volunteers, they're about 60, ages 60 years and up. And they were the motivation for me to get up every morning and serve our patients. I mean, if they can do it, and they were at highest risk when the pandemic started. That's what we were told, right? And they had no problem, and they didn't at that time, they didn't even know to wear masks. So they were handing out food, and even putting food in people's cars and their trunks. And I really valued their how brave they were during this time. And of course, COVID had impact on clinicians and still has an impact on us. Many of us witnessed staff leaving, which you really have a hard time running a clinic or a private practice without any staff. Our overhead increased because of inflation, price of PPE. We had reduced production due to governor's mandate, no aerosolized or elective procedures. So our bread and butter procedures were, we were limited on what we could do. And of course, there was fear of going to work and coming home and spreading the virus to your family. Not having to close your dental practice because you have this mandate and you don't know when life will go back to normal. Fear of having to shut your practice down because you can't afford the PPE or you're out of PPE. And then we were trying to get used to extensive PPE requirements. Any of us that have had to wear an N95 mask can tell you that, boy, at the beginning, it wasn't uncommon for us to have headaches, especially when you're working an 8-hour day with N95 mask. And it really tires you out. Then, of course, acquisition of PPE and materials. One of the things we did a little bit differently was I have a habit of waking up every morning and watching the news. So around January, when I heard about the COVID and it affecting the rest of the world, I remember telling the dental assistants, go ahead and start ordering extra masks and gowns because we would need them. And it looks like, it's only a matter of days before it hits the United States. So I remember remembering ordering a few materials early on. And so we did have enough PPE, thankfully. So we had a change in clinic screenings pre-COVID. We used to screen for hypertension, diabetes, BMI, depression, cholesterol, tobacco. And then with our pediatric patients, we still screen for hypertension, but then bullying, depression, tobacco use, family history of cancer, and HPV vaccination. And during COVID, our screening practices changed where we did a negative COVID screen. And what that was is we did a temperature check at the door, followed by a questionnaire, and also observed the patient in the waiting area for symptoms. So, if anybody was coughing, sneezing, all kinds of, we really had to be very cautious. And then there was a change in our referral protocols too. Before we can normally refer our dental patients, if their blood pressure is high, to the medical providers, any counselors on site, tobacco cessation or to a case manager, because many services are co-located in the building. But then because of the pandemic, it was only emergent care only. The other thing was the medical providers had switched to virtual, which dentistry was not. Texas did not allow virtual dental visits, so the medical providers were not there on site, and so our things kind of shifted for us. So lessons learned, possible solutions. We all know that community clinics do not have the capacity to allow or to have all the dental emergencies during a pandemic or mass disaster show up in our community clinics. So, this is the time when we as dentists or healthcare professionals need to advocate, to our state for, emergent dental care. We need to propose solutions for, just like they made, if you, had COVID and you went to the hospital and you could get treated, you could get healthcare. We need to come up with a solution for, maybe we can discount emergent care, extractions, things, the start of a root canal, like a pulpectomy, the exams. We need to figure out ways to help these, people so that they can get their, feet back on the ground, really, essentially. And, part of the reason we were able to do dental treatment was in our community clinics is we had grants that we had obtained prior to COVID, and that helped us out. That's why we were able to keep the doors open. That's why we were able to afford PPE. But we have to appeal to our private insurance too, like, Delta Dental or MetLife, and say, hey, we need, if we choose to keep our dental offices open, and we're willing to provide emergent care, can you allow us, funding so that we can provide this care? And, we're so busy, the private, companies are so busy trying to find ways to send billionaires to space. But I really think that if they could, work and help us get access, our citizens access to dental care during these emergent, especially emergency care during pandemic times, it would really help too. And so we really need to appeal to our legislators to help us get care for our dental patients, so that the emergency rooms are not backed up. And we all know in the emergency room, even if a patient has dental need, most probably they're going to be treated with antibiotics and pain medication. And so the root cause is still not going to be addressed. Thank you for attending our presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. That was an amazing presentation. Brianna and Sylvia, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to start by thanking you all for having us today. Are you able to see my screen here? Just want to confirm.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, well, we will go ahead and get started. I'll start by introducing myself, and then I'll allow my colleague Sylvia to do the same. My name is Brianna Lewis. I am here with you all today from the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, the School of Public Health, and I'm representing Own Every Piece. Some of you may have heard of our project. We also are referred to as We Can Do More. We'll be discussing the need for contraception during the COVID-19 pandemic today. And Sylvia, I'll allow you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sylvia Yeko. I'm a doctoral student in the Health Promotion and Behavioral Sciences, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And I apologize for that. So my role here on this project, I've been with On Every Piece and We Can Do More for about 6 years now. And so I'm a research coordinator on our project, where I primarily oversee all of our research projects. And then I also work at the school in our administration office. So we'll go ahead and get started. I want to start with a few acknowledgements. I want to first acknowledge our co-authors, Dr. Kimberly Baker and Dr. Susan Tortolero Emery, our funders, our staff and graduate assistants, and then our community stakeholders and partners as well. So I want to introduce you all to On Every Piece. On Every Piece is a digital campaign underneath the We Can Do More umbrella. So when I say you may have heard of We Can Do More, you've probably heard of the projects we've done in Sunnyside and in different areas throughout Houston, such as Third Ward, on TSU's campus and things of that nature. And so the purpose of On Every Piece is to empower women to own every piece of their lives, including birth control and contraception. And what we do is provide women with honest information, allow them to have open conversations about reproductive health care or their birth control experiences, both past and present, and then also providing them with information to navigate them through the healthcare system or reproductive healthcare system by providing affordable contraceptive options and information, and then giving them the freedom of choice in their decision making. On Every Piece was launched as a pilot in 2018, and then we fully launched the initiative in May 2019, where we began to implement some larger strategies under our initiative. Sylvia, I'll let you go ahead from here.
Thank you. So when the pandemic hit last year, we realized that there were a lot of issues that happened. And one study that was conducted in the US revealed that 30% of women postponed or canceled appointments for their reproductive health care. And about 25% were worried about the costs or where to access birth control methods. And with this, the high demand for contraception, especially among uninsured women, and as well as the safety measures, all this, you should not go anywhere, stay at home, all these measures prompted many providers to move towards providing telecontraception as one of the methods of offering birth control. Next step, next slide, please. Next slide, please, Bri. Apologies. I guess I can just continue. Sorry? I don't know if there's a problem on her side.
I think she might be having some connection problems.
Okay. Bri, can you hear us? Oh, sorry about that.
I'm sorry, am I back? Okay, I have no clue what happened. Let me go ahead and reshare my screen. You froze and I was like, well, is it me or is it? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Let's move to the next slide. So one of the, On Every Piece now sought to use different strategies to enhance contraception accessibility and availability within the Houston area. And so some of the strategies we used were like partnering with local pharmacies to provide free emergency contraception, just because we realized many women had little to no access to contraception. And then we also collaborated with a local private provider who offered contraceptives counseling, mainly to increase the access to long-term acting reversible contraceptives, which we also know, also known as LARCs. And we also engaged with local influencers and micro-influencers to increase reach and awareness about contraception and other outreach strategies, which we'll elaborate further. Next slide. And so one of the strategies was offering emergency contraception, which was Plan B. And what we did was On Every Piece provided kits for Plan B. And so these kits included Plan B contraception, condoms, lip balms. We had pens, stickers, and other things, including masks. So it just depended on what was available. And also contraceptive information. And what we know, what we included as the kits was just thinking about if you were in an emergency, what would you do? And so the coin name we had for these kits was Just In Case Kits. And so we partnered with a local pharmacy, which enhanced the distribution of Plan B. And so what happened was patients or individuals who wanted the Plan B would just go online, order for it, and then the clinic would include Plan B and then distribute it to various homes. And this happened between March of 2021 and September. And to date, we have more than 900 Plan B that have been distributed or mailed. And majority of these requests we have seen have come from contraceptive deserts. And one thing that we wanted to point out was we actually saw an uptick of requests these past few months. And this could be because of some of the policies that we have seen recently. So below, this is just a heat map that shows where the main requests came from. So you can see like on the northeast, it's possible because of little to no reproductive health clinics or pharmacies in those areas. And then one thing that we're still investigating is we can see within the loop, which is probably around the medical center, maybe yeah, around that area why there was still a need for contraception. Okay, next.
All right, so I'll hop back in. With regards to contraceptive counseling, we talked about how we believe that women should have freedom of choice, but be able to make informed decisions. And so we partnered with the private provider who offered contraceptive counseling and then linked women to our in-network partner clinics if they were interested in LARCs, which is long-acting reversible contraception, such as IUD and Nexplanon. She and her office staff did not have the capacity to distribute LARC. So by partnering with her, we were able to bring women in, get them the counseling that they needed, and then send them to a clinic who not only could offer LARC, but offer it at a low to no cost, which is a major barrier for women who are seeking LARCs. Another thing that we want to point out is that initially with the emergency plan B that we discussed here, we initially went through the private provider to provide this to women. So we basically said, provide them with contraceptive counseling and then write them a prescription to have Plan B distributed by the same pharmacy that we are still working with. But what we saw was that even that created a barrier because at some point we all started having some Zoom fatigue. And so women were like, okay, I have to go through this Zoom counseling session and then still have the Plan B mailed to me. And, for women who were seeking it and needed it within that 72-hour window, that of course created a larger barrier, but time frame. But it still added not only a time barrier, but an access barrier. Maybe they didn't have access to be able to do contraceptive counseling via Zoom because they didn't have internet or didn't have, a laptop or tablet. So we decided to go straight to the pharmacy and say, hey, we're going to direct women from straight to the pharmacy as opposed to going through the provider. So that allowed her to just focus on providing contraceptive counseling to get women to increase their uptick in LARC. And then we are still working with this provider, and we have seen an uptick in her contraceptive counseling numbers because of Senate Bill 8 that was just implemented September 1st. So yeah, that's pretty much how that worked. And then we have our social media micro influencer strategy. And if you know anything about our program, you know that we've been working with influencers since we launched in 2019, but we really had to pivot what a lot of our strategies look like because of COVID-19. And that included this strategy because we were no longer able to do in-person community outreach. We used to go to, TSU and host events, or we go to different locations, clinic locations throughout Houston, and have influencers ask their following in their community to come out and learn what the program was all about, get more contraceptive information. But because we couldn't do that anymore, we had to figure out how can we increase our reach digitally. And while our major influencers, reached a lot of women, we thought it'd probably be a little more strategic to have a pool of micro influencers be able to distribute this information, because with our larger influencers, it was no longer about in-person community outreach or trying to have women gain awareness about the campaign. But now it was about getting out the information that, we believe women need to know, like the fact that we offer free Plan B, and if they need it, they can come through our program, as well as getting women information, evidence-based and medically accurate information about contraception. So we partnered with 25 micro-influencers between January and September of this year. And like I said, we just basically work to increase access to medically accurate information, contraceptive care, and low-cost resources. And influencers are required to use their social media pages to create content around promoting OEP strategies and resources. Micro influencers follower count range from 1.5K to 8K, which sounds like a lot, but they still fall within that micro influencer range. So this gives you an idea about what our influencers prior to our micro influencer strategy, what their following may have consisted of. We had one young lady who had well over 1 million followers. And while she was very valuable to our campaign. Again, we had to pivot what our COVID-19 influencer strategy looked like. They are required to post content twice a month, with one being video content, and then they must have their OEP link in the bio, which allows their followers to access our website and ultimately our clinics and the information relating to birth control information. So in total, our micro influencers have received over 15,000 likes, 90,000 in reach, and 160,000 plus in impressions, with 1,000 of those being clicks to our website between January and August of this year. Here are some examples of the content that was created. You see here, this is one of our bags that we would give to women at events. And so we sent them obviously to all of our influencers as merch kits or media kits. And this is also in the second photo, this is what the bag looked like. We had pink and blue that the just in case kits came in, and you can see here, she has that information that is located in that bag. And then of course, one of our shirts, and this is one of the influencers who created some content just helping women gain awareness about the campaign. So while you see these pictures in the caption, they'd obviously give women more information about where to find better information, resources, and access. I also want to just go back really quickly. This was also something that one of our influencers created, this video here, and we used it to repost on our page. So. And then so additional outreach strategies that we mentioned when we talked about some of the things that we have been doing during COVID-19, we hosted a Mother's Day brunch in collaboration with Shades of Blue Project to offer women birth control information and products. And so we partnered with them to give mothers lunch, free lunch on Mother's Day or around Mother's Day. And when they came in to pick up a big bag of goodies and things that Shades of Blue Project distributed, we also offered them a shirt. We offered them information and then one of our bags as well. We hosted a Wax, Vax, and Ready event with our local pharmacy partner, where we provided free COVID-19 vaccinations, as well as I believe gift cards to European Wax Center. That's the wax part, the wax, then vax, and now you're ready to go because you are you wax, vaxxed, and ready. So we partnered with them, hosted that event, and it was an amazing turnout. We were really surprised at how many women came to not only get vaccinated, but were really interested in the information that we gave them, and ultimately reached out to our private provider or the pharmacy to get their just in case kit. We did some digital outreach strategies, such as moderated live conversations and panels with public figures, one of them being Angela Yee, who's host of the Breakfast Club, which is a nationally syndicated radio show. And then we have our OEP Candid Conversations cards, where we use these cards to encourage women to have open conversations about sex, relationships, and contraception.
So from our strategies, there are a few lessons, well, quite a number of lessons that we learned during this COVID-19 season. And one of them was that COVID-19 just heightened the iniquities of delivery of reproductive health care and the need for enhanced contraceptive delivery processes. And another thing that we learned was that strong partnerships with reproductive healthcare clinics, pharmacies, and the community is very key in providing reproductive services and also contraceptive counseling. Because we know you may have the services there, you may have the resources, but unless they have access to that information or access to the counseling, it may not really make a difference. And then another thing was that the adoption of telecontraception is something that can be utilized as a sustainable solution beyond COVID-19. So not only in offering virtual services in counseling, but we also know that there's a need for them to go in person, especially if they're getting lacks, insertions or removal of lacks, but that telecontraception is a method that can be used in the future. So you can schedule, you don't have to leave your home, leave your office and get that information. And another thing that we learned was the need to work with micro-influencers. Yes, influencers are great, but micro-influencers influence the local communities, their spheres, local spheres to provide more information. So empowering them with accurate information and key messages around birth control is very important. Next slide. Another thing we learned was that there's a greater need for contraception beyond Houston. Initially, when we started the just in case kids delivery, we had people requesting for the just in case kids, sorry, all the way from, we had requests from Florida, from Georgia, from up north, and we had to restrict it because we just wanted to know what was the need in Houston so that we can create strategic interventions for our city or the areas around us. And we've also seen an increase in contraception subscription services, such as NERCs, and it was because of the loss of jobs and loss of wages that most of them pivoted to this. But at the same time, we know that because many of them lost their jobs, they also lost health insurance. And so what they used to gain access now became a limitation. Hence our need to have the emergency contraception as well as partnering with clinics so that they can have access to other local providers in the area. And yeah, continue, Bree.
Okay. So, so some of the recommendations that we have is to many that you've already heard, but we, need champions to really make these things happen. And so to develop or adapt effective policies and guidelines around reproductive health during pandemics and emergency situations, to strengthen partnerships between clinics and communities to foster continued provision of healthcare. One of the things that we really noticed is with our micro-influencer strategy, we were not only able to help a broad range of women that the influencers reached, but the influencers would often come back to us and tell us how they had no clue, about many of these clinics and the fact that they offered very specific services to women's needs, and how eager they felt in knowing this to share this information with other women. So, we understand that a lot of clinics usually don't have a budget for social media or don't have a budget for community outreach, but in some way impart knowledge on these communities to help them understand what is being provided. Those strengthening those partnerships is really important to continue to bring women in need in and inform them of the fact that the care is there, the resources are there. They just have to be aware of them. And you only know, what you know. So we've learned that, and we recommend to continue strengthen those partnerships between clinics and communities. And then empower community members such as micro-influencers with medically accurate knowledge and information to enhance the distribution of appropriate health information, because in a world full of conspiracy theories and social media, it is important now more than ever. So we hope that you all enjoyed our presentation and that you found a value in it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, Sylvia, Dr. Baker, or Dr. Emery. So thank you. Oh, and what we didn't put in this slide is On Every Piece's social media information, but you can follow us on Instagram at On Every Piece. And then our website is oneverypiece.com. And on Facebook, I believe it's just On Every Piece. So thank you all.
Thank you very, very much. That was extremely informative and very, very interesting. We do have a couple of questions, so I will kind of go through those and then try to filter out and figure out who the questions are actually for. One of the first questions is, sorry, it's lost me. Okay, I'm sorry. How can we become involved in your projects and organizations? My assumption is that it's for both Dr. Patel and then Brianna, I'm sorry, I mispronounced that earlier, and Sylvia. So how can individuals become more involved in your projects and organizations?
Go ahead, Dr. Patel.
I just say, just be advocates. Be advocates. We know that dental care is not affordable. That's part of the reason we're doing this. And be advocates to your legislatures. We should start planning now for these times of mass disaster. And we already know that the worst case scenario occurred. So we should be able to all advocate to our legislatures, and and then just be involved, which everyone who is attending this meeting is probably already really involved. So just remain involved, and and then appeal to your dental providers and tell them to get involved. The private sector really needs to step it up.
And I'll piggyback off of Dr. Patel. I agree to not only be involved, but to advocate for women's rights, for women's, we are in the fight of a lifetime to try and reverse the effects of our, legislation around Roe versus Wade. And I believe Texas, especially, we are truly trying to fight for women's rights. And so to advocate and to increase awareness around resources and information. But more specifically, you can be involved with On Every Piece by obviously following us, going to our website. With that, you will receive more information about some of the things that we are currently doing. So currently we have a what we call a storytelling project, where we're inviting women and encouraging women to come and tell their stories around their reproductive healthcare experiences, so that we can get this information to providers and to the community that, will help us shape what our training looks like. We have a project that will be starting soon with Project Implicit that will help reproductive healthcare providers uncover their implicit associations and biases around contraceptive care delivery. So when you see those things on our social media or on our website, send it to your network, help them get involved as well. But I would definitely piggyback off of Dr. Patel and saying to advocate and to increase awareness. So Sylvia, do you have anything to add?
No, not now. I think you covered everything.
Thank you. So another question is, will you all work with health services and organizations in other cities to duplicate your program or to provide your kits?
Before the pandemic, our dental college, we used to organize Operation East Texas, where we would provide dental care because it is a dental desert, if you will. So the dental students, we take like 50 students during the fall, and in the summer we got to stay a week in the dorms there, thanks to our partnership with TJC. And we would provide dental care in their dental hygiene clinic. So after the pandemic really put a wrench in all that, we're not, due to restrictions at the university level, we're not able to travel, but we have partnered with other cities before. Hopefully we can, start that soon. But I mean, we do have to abide by university regulations right now, and it's for everyone's safety. But hopefully, we can go to these dental deserts and provide care.
Brianna, Sylvia?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, absolutely. Let me pull it back up. Give me a second. Sorry.
No worries.
are you guys, or will you work with health services and organizations in other cities to duplicate your program or provide your kits?
I can't necessarily speak to that as it relates to providing kits, because we are, funded to do very specific work, but we are always open to working with other organizations and agencies to help them adapt what we've done and be successful at it. I know that everyone currently is in the age of using influencers and micro influencers, but of course, healthcare is we're one of the last industries to kind of get on the bandwagon with that. And so we do kind of see ourselves as an agency who's navigated the ups and downs of it thus far, because we've been doing it for so many years. And we've had many people reach out to us about that. So in that sense, yes, but I can't necessarily speak to just in case kit delivery. So yeah.
Thank you. I see Dr. Patel is answering one of the questions, but I don't know if she might want to answer this aloud, but one of the questions is, did COVID-19 stress increase in incidence of cracked molars for dentists? And are there any other observations of dental outcomes other than what was mentioned in her presentation?
Sure. I wouldn't say there was an increased incidence of cracked molars. I mean, stress, of course, many of our patients did relate to us how stressed out they were about not knowing whether when they were going to get their next meal, things like that. But dental caries, we know, doesn't go away. So, and as long as this country, we have access to sodas and, and not enough knowledge to nutrition and obtaining adequate nutrition, we were having to take out many molars and that decay was probably left untreated pre-pandemic. People just didn't go to the dentist regularly. We know that there's a big fear of dentistry in general. Like a lot of people fear because of maybe childhood experiences, fear of going to the dentist. So those things didn't go away. What just, I guess, made it worse is that people just didn't want to go to the emergency room, and rightfully so. Who wanted to go? I know a lot of people dealt with urinary tract infections, became kidney infections because they didn't want to go and had to do a telehealth visit. That was very common. And so, as far as we just saw, what was remarkable is the changing faces that we saw. So we weren't just having elderly patients. We were having a lot of teachers and people who might have pilots, things like that. People might have been on furlough and might have lost their insurance for months, and so the faces were different than what we were used to seeing. And we saw people from all kinds of like I said, they could have been our neighbors, our friends, our relatives that would appeal to us and say, are you open? Because our private dentist is not open, or they've been closed over a month, and we have a emergency. So that's some of the remarkable things we might have seen.
Thank you for addressing that. We have another question actually that came in for Brianna and Sylvia. Were you able to offer any other contraceptive methods other than emergency contraception?
That's a great question. So no, we were not able to offer, let me just say this. We offered emergency contraception via the pharmacy, because of course they're the ones who have to distribute it. But what we did was, so we have a network of clinics that we work with where we provide them with training to decrease their contraceptive biases. And we basically offered them a stipend to have LARCs available for same day LARC insertion. So that was one of the major policies that it still is that we push with our cohort of clinics, is to offer same day LARC insertions, because as you all, may know, women have to go in for their counseling session. They choose which LARC they want and then come back weeks later. But a lot of these women don't keep that second appointment. They don't make it back. It's already hard enough to get to the clinic in the first place for many of these women who have, transportation as a major barrier. So what we did was provide clinics with a stipend to be able to purchase LARCs and have them available for women who wanted them on the same day. So I hope that answers your question, but that's how we navigated providing contraception to women.
Can I just add something to that? So thank you, Bree. For those who sought care and signed up to get the contraception plan B, we also had some follow-up questions. So if someone ordered plan B probably after a month, we restricted that, and we had this information where we said it may be good for you to seek reproductive counseling for a more for better methods of pregnancy prevention, and directed them to some resources that they could seek. So that was one of the ways that we try to help people, so that it's not just relying on emergency contraception, but other more long-term solutions for their reproductive health care.
Yes, thank you for adding that. We only allowed them to, believe receive 2 within a certain time frame. So after the first, they couldn't order another for, I believe, about a month or so. And like Sylvia said, we directed them to the proper resources. Thank you, Sylvia.
So one last question that came in is, was there a specific age range for the women that you all either targeted or worked with? Like, what was that age range, if any?
So we saw a request from 18 to 44, but majority of the requests, Sylvia, correct me if I'm wrong, majority of the requests were women between the ages of like 22 and like 35.
I believe you're correct, yes.
Perfect. And then one final question as we are wrapping up our Q&A, and this one's for Dr. Patel. Did you happen to notice, I'm trying to read through this to make sure I got it right, but any hesitancy to patients receiving their emergency dental care, even with the pandemic going on? And just a side note, I know for me personally, my mother-in-law did not go to the dentist during the pandemic until, she was basically forced to have to go get emergent care. And even then, she was hesitant just due to COVID and all the concerns that come with that. So I think this question aligns with that just a little bit, but did you notice any hesitancy or resistance, I guess, from patients who needed emergency care?
Yes, we sure did. I mean, who felt comfortable taking their masks off? We still have that, where we have to, remind our patients you have your mask on because they're scared. I mean, who wouldn't be scared? And you're afraid to get sick when you're at the dental office. I mean, so we just have to put our job as public health dentists is to put everyone's mind at ease. And the one way we do that is we tell them we follow all university policies. So the policies don't change because we're in an outside clinic. We were lucky that A&M had a COVID task force, and they gave us, as soon as they were developing policies on infection control, because it's a little bit different than pre-COVID, right? I mean, we're having to wear more things. At one point, they weren't allowing you to treat someone in every room. We were lucky at North Dallas, where each room is blocked off by a wall. So there's no open bay because it's an older clinic. But yeah, we weren't able, we had so many policies we can't treat. If somebody's in one room, you have to skip a room. And so we were very lucky. And I feel like that put everyone at ease when they found out they weren't sitting next to someone, in the chair next door. our infection control, we have to leave the chairs 30 minutes after cleaning them. We couldn't put somebody else in that chair. So we were very cautious, as the task force was giving us rules and things that they were finding out. And I remember one of the people on the task force worked in the hospital. And so that's why we had a skeletal staff too. So we try to keep the staff and the dentist together. And so if we did have to quarantine, because some of us did have to quarantine because of a possible exposure here and there. So as soon as we'd find out, it would just be one group, and that way we didn't have to shut the clinics down, that the other team would just take over. So yeah, I mean, of course there was hesitancy.
Well, thank you very much, all of you. Thanks to all of our panelists for this very informative information. And I appreciate all of our attendees as well for kind of jumping on and hanging in there with us. But that will in fact wrap up session 2 of today's conference. I have placed the link for the evaluation for CHES and MCHES credits within the chat box. So feel free to access it there and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakeisha. We're going to go ahead and transition over to a break for lunch. And then after, we will be having a working lunch session that will focus on TSOPHE awards and membership. So we'll see you all in a couple of minutes.
To get to anywhere, maybe we'll make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, I got nothing to prove. You got a fast car. I got play on time store. Matches eight, still a bit of money. Won't have to drive too far. Just cross the border and into the city. You and I can both get jobs. Finally see what it means to be living. You got a fast car. So fast enough so we can fly away. We're gonna make a decision. Live tonight and die this way. So remember we're driving, so fast. said his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like his. Mama went off and left him. She wanted more from life than he could give. I said somebody's got to take care of him. So I quit school and that's what I did. You got a fast car. We go cruising and entertain ourselves. You still ain't got a job. Not working the market as a checkout girl. And all things will get better. You'll find work and I'll get promoted. We'll move out of the shelter. Buy a bigger house and live in the suburbs. You got a fast car. See fast enough so you can fly away. You gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or let die this way. So I remember we were driving your car. Speed so fast, felt like I was drunk. See the lights lay out before us, and the all felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling that I could be someone. Had a feeling that I could be someone. Be someone. Had a feeling that I could be someone. We go hide away in daylight. We go undercover, wait out the sun. Got a secret side in plain sight. Where the streets are empty, that's where we run. Everyday people do everyday things, but I can't be one of them. I know you hear me now. We can do anything. We could be heroes. We could be heroes. Me and you. We could be heroes. We could be heroes. Me and you. We could be.
Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our awards and membership session. So for this session, we're going to go ahead and have an overview of what membership for TSOPHE includes. We will also receive some information on TSOPHE's strategic plan. We'll receive the TSOPHE award announcements from, it says Ed here, but Ed had something come up, so he will be unavailable to announce the awards as originally planned. And then we will have a Q&A session at the end in case anyone has any questions for any of us. So first up, we have Amaka, who will talk a little bit about membership for TSOPHE.
All right. Haley, I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right, hopefully everyone could see my screen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amaka Agbor, and I'm a head of the membership committee. I'm also president-elect. Thank you for joining us for this working lunch, in which we'll focus this first part of this working lunch on our membership for TSOPHE. So of course, you know, TSOPHE is part of National SOPHE, and you can always learn more about National SOPHE by going to sophe.org. No matter where you travel, there's different chapters that you can get involved. We're one of 22 chapters covering more than 30 states. And this map right here shows the different different SOPHE chapters, excuse me. TSOPHE was started in 1973. We serve as a regional affiliate of SOPHE, and our mission mirrors that of SOPHE as well. So we're going to talk about membership and the structure of TSOPHE. So TSOPHE is comprised of our officers, which make up our board. We have our president, past president, and president-elect. And I put all this together because this is a 3-year commitment for a president-elect. So for instance, I'm president-elect, and this is my first year. The next year, I'll go into being president, and then the following year, I'll be past president. As far as Haley's currently the president, and then the next year she'll be past president. And basically the president will just oversee over the group and the meetings. Next, we have the secretary, which is a 1-year term, which takes, the secretary is in charge of disseminating board meeting minutes. And then the treasurer is a 2-year term, which is in charge of the financial affairs of the chapter. Our national delegate is a 2-year term, and it represents SOPHE at our House of Delegate meetings. Then we have 4 general board members, and they serve 2-year terms overlapping each other. We also have a 1-year term for the graduate board member and a 1-year term for the undergraduate board member. We usually start the nomination process for board members in late October. All TSOPHE members can vote, and it's based on a majority vote. Haley introduced our executive board earlier today. Along with the board members, there are also committees. Each of the board members chair a committee for a 1-year term. And these committees are central to meeting the mission of TSOPHE. We have our awards committee, and they authorize the 2 outstanding service awards. The membership committee, which I'm on, we stimulate the active members, seek new members, and maintain the membership directory, and then maintain the membership database. We also have the professional preparation committee, which acts as a consultant to universities in the professional preparation of community public health educators. Then we also have the program planning committee, and the program planning committee is tasked with planning, coordinating, and implementing and evaluating programs and continuing education workshops. Our advocacy and legislation committee, it's charged with influencing state and national legislation. Our continuing education committee increases opportunities for members to earn CHES credits. Our Constitution and Bylaw Committee reviews our bylaws annually, and our auditing committee does the annual audits for our finances. And these committees are not just for board members. Anyone that's part of TSOPHE can sign up to be part of a committee and take part in our monthly meetings and activities. There's many benefits of membership. Through this conference, we've gained over 60 new members, so I know a majority of us are already members. But you may be interested in knowing what TSOPHE can do for you. TSOPHE can provide you with networking opportunities, professional growth, leadership skills if you take part of a committee or on a board. Also with our communications, if you're a TSOPHE member, you have access to our newsletter, our job notices, and our membership directory. Membership also, a benefit of membership is CHES and MCHES credits. And then also discounts for our TSOPHE conferences, which happen every other year. There's many different benefits for being a student member. You can join TSOPHE to build your professional resume. Being also involved in TSOPHE is a smaller professional organization. So it gives you a more personalized feel when you're networking. Also, benefits to student memberships is you can start off learning about poster presentations and what all that entails. Of course, you have your CHES and MCHES credits that you can get being part of TSOPHE. There's also scholarship opportunities for members, internship and volunteer opportunities, and of course, that vital aspect of networking. So membership in TSOPHE serves as an opportunity to be engaged in local efforts to advocate for professional development in order to maximize effectiveness as a practitioner. Anyone who's living here in Texas or a neighboring state is eligible to be a TSOPHE member. We're all currently members probably already, but when your membership expires, being a professional member is about $30 a year, and retirees and students are $20 a year. And you can fill out your application for renewal or to see more about membership by going to xsophe.org/membership. You can also go to that page to become a member spotlight. We like to acknowledge how awesome our members are. And the TSOPHE Member Spotlight Program will highlight individual members, their experiences, and how they've benefited from TSOPHE membership. To be featured in our quarterly membership spotlight, please fill out the form here on this website. The membership spotlight submissions are shared through our communication channels, which include LinkedIn, our social media profiles, and our website as well. Now that we've all become members, I'd like to encourage everyone to edit their membership profile. If you go to the membership page, you can go right there to the top that says edit your member profile and edit your information there below. Once you edit this information, this is how it will look in the directory, which will become active in the following week. It will show your name, your employment, your certifications. And then also in the form, you could select your committee interest. Those committees that I talked about earlier, make sure you go in and check the committee that you'd like to be a part of. If you're unable to do so, you can always send me a message or TSOPHE a message through email, and we can edit those committee interests for you so you could be on that communication channel. So another way that you can get involved in TSOPHE is by becoming a board member. Towards the end of this year, we're doing board nominations, and as you can see, there's a lot of vacancies because a lot of terms are ending this year. So we do have a vacancy for secretary, treasurer, national delegate, board member, 2 board members, our graduate board member, and our undergraduate board member. Of course, you could self-nominate, and you'll find out information about what the job entails and the term commitment for becoming a board member. You can contact us if you have any questions about membership, and we'll be doing another more in-depth membership webinar later on this year. You can contact us at texassophe@gmail.org, or you can contact me at that email address in the middle, or you can go to our website and select our membership page. If you have any questions, you can just drop that in the Q&A box below, and I'll answer that throughout this working lunch. And I will now hand it over to Haley, who will share a little bit about our TSOPHE strategic plan and what we've accomplished so far as a chapter.
Thank you, Maka. Let me go ahead and switch back to our slide. Okay. So for TSOPHE, this past year, we basically set goals and objectives at the beginning of each term. They are formally updated every 4 years. But it's basically, the strategic plan is basically designed to provide some guidance for some of the things that we want to accomplish as a chapter over the year. For membership, we aimed to increase membership by 10%, which has been accomplished by April and October of each year. We aim to conduct activities to promote the public health profession. By December of each year, we partner with TPHA and Tapered. By December of each year, we support the Public Health Museum of Texas, those partnering with TPHA and Tapered and supporting the Public Health Museum of Texas are still 2 strategic goals and objectives that we are working towards. For communications, by December of each year, we aim to maintain a visible online presence of the TSOPHE chapter. As you all know, our communications committee has been doing an excellent job of maintaining our online presence. As a chapter, we have an Instagram page, a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page, and a Twitter account as well. So if you are on any of those social media platforms, please follow us on those accounts. We also have our monthly newsletter that goes out that Eva does a great job of putting together. And we are working towards creating an academic or higher education advisory board so that we can become more connected with institutions and organizations in the state of Texas. Excuse me. For advocacy, we provide advocacy information to TSOPHE membership, whether it's through the newsletter or information about the National SOPHE Advocacy Summit that happens, and scholarships that are available to attend the Advocacy Summit. For professional preparation, by December of each year, we provide one chest review event for members and other health education professionals. As you all know, we did hold a chest and chest test review session earlier this year. And then by December of each year, we hope to promote professional development opportunities for students and new graduates. We do that through the conference and other professional development opportunities through our webinar series as well. During conference year, our webinar series does tend to kind of take the back burner. So we do have less webinars that happen throughout the year, but mostly because we prefer to have targeted presentations for our conference. So our strategic plan is finalized and updated and reviewed every 4 years by our board. These efforts and goals are largely driven by our executive board members and our committee chairs. We are definitely open to modifications and additional collaborations with institutions and organizations. We hope that as TSOPHE members, you will be able to provide insight, direction, and support for our strategic plan goals during 2022. At this time, I do want to go ahead and introduce Jen, who will talk to us a little bit about the awards. Okay, I think I need to add her as a panelist. Give me 1 second because she did just hop on. Hi, Jen, are you on as a panelist? Let me see. Perfect. Hi, Jen. Thanks so much for hopping on. I know this is last minute. We received some last minute information from Ed, who was originally supposed to present the awards. And we have Jen in his place to announce them. Thanks so much, Jen.
Not a problem. Good. I think it is afternoon now, everyone. I have had the privilege of serving on the TSOPHE board this past year and as the awards committee co-chair alongside Ed Jones, who I'm sure sins his regrets that he couldn't be here. He originally had the pleasure of announcing our awards winners, and I feel terrible that I am now taking that away from him, but we will acknowledge his hard work on this committee in absentia. We are delighted to announce that our 2021 TSOPHE Awards have been selected. First and foremost, we want to thank everyone who submitted a nomination for an award this year. The time and effort put into the nomination packet, especially during challenging times, is greatly appreciated. All members of TSOPHE were allowed to submit a nomination for both of our awards, and I'll tell you a little bit about each one before we announce the winners. So the first award is the Helen S. Hill Award, and it recognizes individuals who have made significant and lasting contributions to TSOPHE and to the profession of health education or public health. And I am delighted to announce that the winner of this award is one of our own on the TSOPHE board. I can't see who's logged in right now, participants, but I hope he's here. And the winner of this award this year is Joshua Yudkin. And I'd like to read a statement from the nomination packet for Joshua to win this award. And it says, be it on an individual, institutional, or collective level, Josh has demonstrated both dedication to and excellence in public health education. As an executive board member of TSOPHE, Josh has elevated the quality of TSOPHE programs and the TSOPHE brand. And I echo everything in that nomination letter and congratulate Josh on winning the Helen S. Hill Award this year. The next award is the Dorothy Husky Excellence Award. And this award recognizes early career health educators, less than 5 years, who have distinguished themselves as promising health educators through leadership, creativity, involvement in the profession, and health education practice in any setting. And the winner this year of the Dorothy Husky Excellence Award is Taylor Levy. And I hope I pronounced their name correctly. And I would like to read you a statement from the nomination letter for Taylor to win this award. And the nominator said, Taylor embodies the spirit of health education. She is dedicated to the profession, enthusiastic about learning and research, and willing to advocate for health education resources needed to improve the health of our community. I have absolutely no reservations about recommending Taylor for this award. Her early career success, leadership, and community health outreach indicate that she is a deserving candidate. So I want to thank you and acknowledge on behalf of TSOPHE both of our winners this year, Josh and Taylor. We are excited to see where the future brings you in terms of your contribution to health education and promotion. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you, Jen. At this time, we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions. If there are any questions for membership about the strategic plan, about the awards, anything at all, please feel free to go ahead and place that in Q&A or in the chat.
Well, I guess a question would be, when can people start applying to become a board member?
So individuals could apply to become a board member once the call for nominations go out. And those should be going out by end of October, early November.
Thank you, Amaka. And in the chat, Liz asks, can you talk a little bit more about board member and committee assignments?
Yes. Liz, is there anything specific that you wanted to know? Most of our board member positions are 1-year terms, except for, of course, the presidency, which is, it's a 1-year term, but it's a 3-year commitment, and the treasurer, which is a 2-year term. And most of the board member job descriptions, or what you would call it, would be, we all kind of gather and attend our monthly board member meetings, where we provide our reports for activities that are going on within the group. And then as far as committees, It just depends on the committee that you're interested in. For example, the membership committee will do activities that reach out to getting new members, maintaining members, networking activities, also maintaining our membership directory. Right now, the directory is not live, but it should become live within the next week or two, where you could see all the different members that are part of TSOPHE, and also post on the message board and answer poll questions, which is a feature on our website. And then, for instance, like the communications committee is in charge of, newsletter, doing all our announcements and that go out via email, and do our social media accounts. I don't know if that answered your question, Liz. Oh, okay, yes, it did. Thanks.
You can also, if you're very interested in being part of more than just one committee, you can do so. You can be part of the program planning committee and the communications. You can. Depends on how involved you want to become.
Yes, there's an opportunity for everyone. And then there's another question here in the chat from Sade. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And she asked, will there be a chance that TSOPHE hosts a virtual job and networking fair? That is an awesome suggestion. And now that you've suggested it, I think we should make it happen. So yes, I think the good thing about this group is that, the sky's the limit, and we can, do however much or little that, we would like to do. So I will definitely put that down in the works of doing a virtual job and networking fair. And it's been also on the books to do a virtual like speed networking, so members could get to know each other and get connected and network professionally. Any other questions? And also, when the call for nominations go out, the descriptions of those board positions are also put out as well, so you could see in detail what that board position, what the duties involve and the time commitment for that position.
Any other questions? Well, if not, we're gonna take an about 10-minute break and come back for the closing ceremony for today. And we hope that everybody liked the sessions of today. Tomorrow we're gonna be starting at 8 a.m. with a networking session. Bring your coffee. It's early, but it's great. We're gonna have tons of great speakers as panelists. Yeah. Well, then I'll see everyone in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Eva. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and get day one of the conference wrapped up. So let me go ahead and go back to slides. Okay, so with the closing of our working lunch, we want to take some time to thank all of our presenters for today. We want to thank Dr. Parra Medina for presenting on the importance of training the public health workforce through an intersectional lens. We also want to thank the presenters for our 2 sessions today, leadership, mentorship, and training the public health workforce, and also systems thinking, interconnectedness, and health in all policies. We hope that these presentations, despite being virtual, resemble an in-person conference. On behalf of TSOPHE, we especially want to emphasize that networking and exchanging contacts is encouraged. We hope that you will all join us tomorrow. We will start day 2 at 8 a.m. with a poster session and a networking session that focuses on navigating difficult topics in public health. We will then resume the conference at 9 a.m. with our second day keynote speaker, Dr. Opusunju, who will discuss health equity in the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we will continue on into tomorrow's oral sessions. You can find the full conference agenda on our website under our events page. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This concludes day 1 of the Empowering Communities Through Health Education Conference. We will see you all tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone, and see you tomorrow. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Eva.